Hi, my name is Wendy Delson, and I am presenting my final project for MIT 812. My presentation will provide beginning violin students with an interactive program that they can use at home to reinforce concepts that were taught in class. As a pull-out class, I only see my students once a week for an hour. It's not ideal, but that's the nature of string orchestra programs in many districts. During home practice, advanced players can practice orchestra music and technique that they've learned in class. For the beginning student, however, who's unfamiliar with playing an instrument, this can be more of a challenge. I created a Google slide presentation so that students can have a home practice program that will reinforce my classroom learning. My audience will be beginning violin students in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade who live in a culturally and economically diverse city. Almost 50% of my students speak a language other than English in their home, and more than 60% of my students are enrolled in a free lunch program. Using the teaching strategies of modeling, scaffolding, graphic organizers, and diversified instruction, students will meet many learning objectives. A project objective is to give students an interactive vehicle to extend their lessons and their time with me into their home. Students will establish good practice habits at home. Students will hold the violin properly. Students will identify parts of the violin as well as note names of the open strings. Students will know the pitches of the open strings. Students will pizzicato or pluck the open strings and say the note names at the same time. Students will know the proper care and maintenance for their instruments. Students will develop good practice habits. I met my objectives by sequentially replicating the first lessons on the violin in an interactive video, as well as providing my students with graphic organizers, video, animation, and photos to help their home practice. Because of the easy-to-understand format, parents or siblings can participate in this as well, even if they don't speak English, which is about 50% of my parents. This will provide students with more success and motivation. The Suzuki program, in fact, which demands parent participation in both lessons and home practice, has received high praise for its excellent training of string players. I will now show you my Google slide presentation so you can also see how I met my objectives. Slide number 1 is an introduction. With Powtoon animation, students will be reminded to practice and to bring their instrument, music, and a pencil to class. A graphic organizer with parts of the violin will help students remember. A photo of the violin with the note names of the strings will reinforce not only the names of the strings, but also which is the highest and which is the lowest string. A fingering chart will help students remember several things: the musical alphabet, and where to put their fingers on the fingerboard. To hear audio of the strings, I put a button students can click to hear the sounds of the strings. Caring for an instrument is very important. This YouTube video will show students how to care and maintain their instrument at home. I made this video to recreate a beginning class lesson. Students are encouraged to play along with me, extending class time into their house. A slideshow of our annual string festival will let students see the fun and great learning experiences that they can have if they participate. Lastly, this slide wraps it all up, again inviting students to share their practice with their parents and family. Looking back on creating this project, the process was very new to me. I used multimedia that I'd never used before, so it was a little scary. But I asked questions and watched tutorials and learned an awful lot in the process. I even had my students create a mind map with MindMeister today, and they loved it. I tried to find a project that I could use with my students to help them in some aspect of their learning. I asked colleagues in a Facebook group that I belong to, string and orchestra teachers, what they'd like to see in an interactive presentation that would benefit their students. I read many interesting posts from teachers across the country. Using their ideas as a starting point, I came up with a concept for my project. I've never seen anything like this before, and the teachers in my group can't wait for me to share this with them. I believe that I developed a presentation that is unique and creative and that has met my objectives. I tried to think sequentially, building step by step so that students can understand many facets of string playing that put together enable them to love playing and to love learning.